Okay.
Ready? Good afternoon and welcome to the Athens-Clarke County Board of Elections and Voter Registration. This is a regular scheduled meeting. The date is May 9th. The time is 4:30 p.m. We're at 120 West Doherty Street in Athens, Georgia. The first item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda unless a member wishes to make a change. Okay.
I'll second.
Motion, Ms. Till, second, Mr. Kadir. All those in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, agenda is adopted. Next item on the agenda are the approval of minutes. There are 4 sets of minutes in front of you. March 27th, that was a special meeting. April 11th, that was a regular meeting. April 18th, special meeting, and May 2nd was a special meeting. Does any member have any comments or concerns with the minutes as presented? Okay. Hearing no changes, the chair will entertain a motion to adopt the 4 sets of minutes before us as one. So if anyone wishes to make a motion, now's the time.
I so move.
Okay, do we have a second? Second. It's like a. Motion, Mr. Kadir, second, Mr. Shirley. All those in favor of adopting the minutes, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Aye, minutes are adopted. Next item on the agenda is public comment, and I believe there's a sign-up sheet. So each public commenter will get 3 minutes, and I will let you know when your time begins. The first person is Emily Krim, followed by Jacqueline Elsner. Time begins now.
Hi, I'm here again to ask that OAS be removed as a polling location for voters. As I stated previously, Oglethorpe is a location that is unsafe for children, disrupts their schooling, and provides poor accessibility for voters, especially for those needing accommodations for disabilities. Listening to the last few work sessions, I've heard commentary from the board regarding the fact that there's been only one concern regarding moving this location, but there are multiple teachers and parents that share my concerns in the fact that this is a serious safety issue. Current OCGA code allows for different changes to be promoted, I guess, and proposed from the public. 21-2-262 states that upon the petition of 20 electors, I'm kind of skipping down a little bit, that a petition can be provided to the superintendent who would refer such petition, to the Board of Registrars. Board of Registrars then investigates the facts, and if they find a division, redivision, alteration, formation, or consolidation of precincts will promote the convenience of the electors in the public interest, which this would be the case, that it can recommend such a change. 21-2-265 also states that the superintendent of a county or the governing authority of a municipality shall select and fix the polling place within each precinct. It may either in his, her, or its own motion or on petition of 10 electors of a precinct change the polling place within any precinct. There are far more than 10 people that would sign this petition and ask for this to be changed. This is a serious issue. Later on, it also states that in regards to changes that have been proposed, if a petition is presented to the superintendent signed by 20% of the electors of the precinct objecting to the proposed change, such change shall not be ordered, which is also something that I think would have to be pursued when discussing the fact of moving over the fire station polling location into Oglethorpe. Doing so adds, basically, numbers are provided by you all a few meetings ago, 58% increase to the amount of voters funneling into Oglethorpe. And while I don't feel like pursuing petitions is necessarily the extreme that needs to be taken, I ask that you all please consider the situation here. I know that it's difficult to make changes to polling locations, but honestly, these don't have to be mutually exclusive things. There are polling locations that are very appropriate that can be provided to the voters and still making sure that they are having a secure and safe and appropriate place for them to vote while still maintaining the safety of the kids in the schools. Last Thursday, there was a lockdown drill at Oglethorpe because the day before, and I'm not sure, but I assume the day before there was a threat of someone going into a school just up the street at Bernie Harris, threat of taking a gun in and shooting children. This is something that is happening every day. Since I spoke last a few weeks ago, there have been 62 mass shootings. We're in Georgia, one of those in Athens. This is not just something on the news. This is happening. And it shouldn't be something that we promote other options before exploring every single potential location that can still promote the safety of our kids. It's just not something that can be ignored. Thank you for your time.
The next person on the public comment list is Jacqueline Elsner.
Jacqueline Elsner.
Second to get your time. Go ahead.
I'm Jacqueline Elsner, 315 Caldwell Circle, Athens, 30605. And I've watched the movies, all y'all's work sessions and your April meeting, and you're working real hard. And I want to thank the GIO department for all their research with y'all. And the five of you really listen to each other and work together and respect the views that you're all trying to protect. Ms. Fambro's got reasons not to be here today, but I agree with Ms. Fambro's passion to include Marion Moore as an advanced voting location. And the notion, I mean, it's right. You want to look at numbers, how many people voted at that location, but y'all know yourselves, whatever changes you make for the 24 elections, people are going to be angry and people are going to be confused and people are going to show up the wrong place. But Marion Moore needs a chance to establish itself as a really important voting location for our county. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. And I just really appreciate what y'all are doing. Thank you.
It does not appear as though additional people to make public comment. Next item on the agenda is the director's report. Find that in your packet.
Afternoon, board. Thank you, Chairman Rackle. What you have in your report is the statistical report for the month of April, which includes total registered voters. We have grown 71,340 who are active, 12,546 are inactive, which is less than what we had the following month, which means that there's been some participation from our voters. And then we have 83,886 total. And so of that, we had 25 cancellations, 20 are deceased, 4 requested, and 1 moved out of state. As at this time, we don't have a count of our felons, as that is still something that's being worked on through the state new registration system. So as we have that information, we'll update you on those. We have provided less number of IDs or issued less than we did last month, a total of 26. And that's all we have for our activity report. The next item is the board's pay. So I've provided a presentation that you have a copy of, but it will also be displayed on the board here. And so I started out with a little history about the Board of Elections, where in 1993, Governor Zell Miller signed the authority, the act that enabled the General Assembly of 1993, the Enabling Act that created the Board of Elections and Voter Registration for Athens-Clarke County. At that time, the Board of Commission and the mayor had set a monthly per diem of $25 and $15 per hour on election day that you get paid as well. For your training, $15 an hour, and then you're reimbursed for your mileage. On September 4th, you requested that I conduct a compensation survey of the counties within the state of Georgia on how they're paid. And a comparative analysis was provided to you of numerous counties And what I've done is I've gone through the report, the survey, and compiled the ones that are receiving the most amount for their service on the board.
Is that 2021 or 2022?
No,
Twenty
21.
twenty-one.
We've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah, that's correct. So as I stated currently, you're receiving $25 per meeting. And I put on my estimate approximately 2 meetings a month. Some months you have more, right? But some months you only have one. So I just kind of broke it down to approximately 2 meetings per month. $15 an hour on election day for 5 elections, approximately 15 hours on each. $25 for certifying those 5 elections each. $15 an hour for conferences and trainings, which lasts 3 days. And so I factored in 8 hours for that. And it gives me approximately $2,160. And that does not include your mileage that you receive for your training and on election day. So the result of the analysis, of course, you directed me to make a proposal to the mayor and commission. That was your vote. And as I presented a proposal to the mayor, and during their special called in an agenda setting session on December 2021, and was given the following, and I had presented the following recommendation, which includes $150 per month with meeting requirements, $100 per election, $100 for election certification, $100 per day of training and conferences, which gives a maximum of $2,900 annually. And you would receive reimbursement for travel to conferences and election day visits to the polling locations. So I wanted to share with you the results of the mayor and commission meeting. They were very supportive during their conversations, supportive of your request. They agreed that there is compensation warranted, as some boards and authorities and commissions for Athens-Clarke County, some do not receive compensation, but that you're also different than most of the boards and commissions and authorities, right? Election day pay seems to be in line with the other counties from the survey, from what I presented. And even if increasing the pay, other BAC's compensations should be revisited and with caution. So they're knowing that if they start with you guys, as far as the Board of Elections and Voter Registration, that there's some other boards that's gonna come forward, right? Which should happen. And so I was instructed to think strategically as to how to make the adjustment and to follow the guidelines of the budget requests. So what's next? I proposed a final agenda for the upcoming mayor and commission meeting to include your board's request. And what I need to know is, based on the information that I provided you, would you like to be what with everybody else has? Or are you wanting me to request something different? I have my idea of what, based on this, but I prefer the recommendation come from you because you're the ones that's making the request and I'm doing it on your behalf. So.
Yeah.
So I'm asking the board if you would vote today on what you would like for me to make the request of.
Haven't we already voted on what's on one of your slides already?
I think you voted that you would go with whatever I recommend. I think that's what your vote was.
I mean, as I've stated before, I think we should be paid per hour of work we're done equal to whatever this is my personal view, equal to whatever the managers of the polling sites are being paid an hour. But because I like to do the work and be paid equally for the hours the work is done. That's how I view it. I think Ms. Till, and then all three of you, Ms. Till's first.
I have a question. I know a couple of times we've heard that we are competing, comparing ourselves with other boards? I'm unfamiliar with the boards in Athens. Are there 2 or 3 that you can tell me that this would affect, that we would be concerned with?
Can I add one thing to that before you answer it? Other boards that also, if they don't follow the statutes, then face criminal penalties. You know, that's a very
we do.
important distinction
As we do.
of us versus others.
So the planning commission would be one of those boards.
So if the planning commission. Okay, well, that's fine. I don't need to get into that. 'Cause
I don't know anything about what the planning commission is paid or how they compare to us, but that's a good point because I don't know that they go to jail for something. We're threatened with jail time if we don't adhere to the law.
Mr. Attorney, do you have anything to add to that particular piece?
In theory, I do agree with Mr. Raffle in terms of how we should be compensated. Frankly speaking, when I came on board, I did not even anticipate the $25 a month. So I feel a little awkward in asking about it. I would like to defer to whatever your idea, you said you had a thought about it, and go with that, because I could live with any decision, but I do believe this board is substantially different than several other boards that I have been on in terms of what we're asked to do, what we are required to do, and where the work that goes with it is, there could be penalties if we did not do it right, rather than some advisory boards where you're basically just coming in and voting for things. And I'm not saying the other boards work is less important. It's just conducted in a different way. So I would like to go along with what the director has to say, but I want to hear what Mr. Shirley has to say.
I recall, and I've been looking over the minutes from my notes from the previous meetings, because this has been on the back burner for a little bit. I remember the initial sentiment we all shared was we were very uncomfortable talking about our own pay, and we deferred early on to you and your recommendation with your expertise. I still feel that way, and I can tell by the nods that we all still kind of feel the same way. I know that none of us came here to get rich at all, which is good because we're not getting rich doing this. But I'm cognizant of the fact that, as I'm now the father of a 14-month-old, that there might be childcare considerations and things like that for a successor, for someone else in the future in this position. And someone from the community who wants to serve on this board might think twice before applying if they can't afford to do it, if they can't afford the time commitment, can't afford childcare, that kind of stuff. So that is how I'm justifying to myself why get paid at all. Like, I am lucky enough that I don't need that compensation, but I would not want a segment of the population to say, well, I can't even try to serve on the Board of Election in the future because we're not being paid at all for this. So that returns me to being in support of some kind of increase, but then I quickly back off the specifics because I get uncomfortable with how much we should be paid. So all that to say, I agree with the general sentiment, and I defer more to you in terms of what you recommend. The comparative analysis is compelling to me. I was trying to dig for our minutes to see, because I could have sworn we had voted on saying, yes, what you said, let's go. But I can't quite find the motion where we said to do it. I see proposals from you in the past. I'd be curious to know where we are right now with the proposal the initial proposal. Has that been rejected? Has it been sent back to us for further consideration? Or?
It was sent back because what I had proposed, there was questions of, was it really a modest amount? Was it, when you look at it, is it any different than, when you're looking at the other counties, is it as much as the other counties or not? And that was one of the questions that came up in the discussion, because it was stated that it didn't seem like it was in line with other counties.
Too high or too low?
Too low.
Low, I see.
You
So,
can make this more. I mean, we're not going to put that down.
What county is it? Richmond?
There you go.
Richmond.
Because I guess I'm seeing the initial proposal, the slide that you have before us, the maximum is $2,900 annually, which 230 a month or so is what that comes out to. And then I'm using that to compare to the comparative analysis you have. And that puts us looks like in the ballpark of these counties that you have on there. So ultimately, I'm going to probably defer personally to what you recommend. If you think that the proposal you put before them is okay, or if it's too low,
We still need to vote.
we will, yeah,
Yes.
as far as that my
So-
feedback, that's my.
Right, and what I was wanting to avoid is going before the mayor and commission, and here's this request, and then next year having to go before the mayor and commission again, and you decided you should have something else. So that's why I wanted your feedback.
I see.
So that I can say, this is what the board is wanting,
I see.
or feels would warrant.
To do it right while we're in
Yes.
here and then not
Yes.
come back again. Is that kind of what we're, okay, I see.
And our incredibly savvy secretary, I asked him, what is $15 an hour from 1993 in today's inflation dollars? And it's $31.05. And the $25 a month is 51.
According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics,
So
inflation calculator.
being on par with what the managers are making per hour is still far behind where we are, but that's a bigger problem that we're not gonna fix in this room.
But I'm curious, like, I get what your sentiment is. So I see how,
I'll support whatever, but I'm just saying that I prefer do the work, be paid for equal work you do.
So hourly pay.
Yeah, I mean, so I didn't know I was gonna get paid either when I started. Okay, so it's like, oh, cool. Miss Aletha gave me a time card. Oh, cool, $25, great. But then just to speak about myself for a moment, I mean, we all bring talents and ideas and things to this board that I think we should be fairly compensated for because so. But again, I'll just support what the rest of the group, because I'm really kind of tired of having this conversation over and over every month.
So are you leaning towards an hourly pay? Because then we'll need to see if that's something that can be legally done. And where does it put you as far as payroll's concerned? Now, are you considered like an employee like we are and you have taxes coming out and
But we have taxes now.
you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Even on like election day when we work from whatever to whatever, it's.
Gotcha.
but that's the question I was wondering about then. You mentioned wanting to be on par with managers for you personally. Like, are you in favor of trying to recalculate? Because it seems like the director has specific sections, types of pay for us. Would you be in favor of replacing that with more of a flat, whenever we show up and do a thing, we get paid this much an hour, which is the manager pay comparable? Is that what you want to replace that
It's
with?
the easiest, cleanest, and to be honest, we'd probably have to go look at averages, but it's probably less than that number, really. At the end
I like
of the
the
day, I think
idea.
it's less, but
I like that idea, the spirit of that. I don't know if that's more of a nightmare on the back end to calculate, or if it's easier to calculate. It's that more of a, this side of the room.
yeah, I mean, but again, I'm not, just,
I think at another meeting when we were discussing this and another attorney was here, she brought up the fact that this is a stipend for us. It's not actually a payroll. So it might be safer to go with what you have here rather than try to
Sure,
go
sure.
with a payroll per hour thing. That might be rejected and here we would find ourselves back again. It's just, none of us expected to get anything out of this. We've all discussed that among ourselves, and I know you've heard us talk about that. But shamefully, realistically, when they went to a conference and met other people, and these people started saying, oh, well, we get $600. You get what? Oh, and we get $300 a month. And we looked at, well, since 1993, everybody that served has gotten $25. And that all made us feel kind of, well, I guess we're not really valued for what we're doing. And we think that we're doing a great job for the community, but obviously the county doesn't think that we're very valuable. And I think for myself, that's how I began to look at it as, I'm not very valuable. I'm just being blunt and honest.
Just
Oh, we
quickly,
done? Sorry.
Yes, dear, I'm
Okay.
done.
you all know how I feel about spending government money on anything. Having said that, I do prefer it to be a stipend because I would not want the next person to think, okay, it's an hourly pay. So if I put in this many hours, they're totally dependent on it. They are coming in thinking, hey, if I get something 1,000 a year, 2,000, maybe almost 3,000, that's just a bonus for them. That is how I prefer to look at it. Yes, and I did speak a little bit with someone on the board from Henry County, it's about the same size as ours, maybe a little bigger. At the same time, I will also say there are several counties hardly pay anything to their board of election. They are so poor. Some of them cannot afford to go to the banquet when they are there. And one of our audit committee proposal was we should get rid of the banquet because it doesn't feel good that my taxpayers are paying it, but somebody else's are not in the state of Georgia. So, that's a side discussion. But the point is, if the county, I do feel our work is very different than all your other boards. And that is not something I would urge the manager and us to look, or even if the commission is looking at it, they cannot look at it and say, oh, well, other boards we need to look at. I don't see all of them the same way. The planning commission is some of that. But in terms of what should be presented, I leave it to you. I mean, I'm happy either way.
Okay, so can I say this then? If you would vote if it should be hourly or a stipend, and then vote on maybe a monthly amount. If you want it to be broken down and say that you get so much per day per conference, and what would that amount be? And then we have somewhere to go, because I'm looking at what the survey provided. A lot of the counties that are listed here, they're not paid for election day.
Right.
Some of them don't even mention conferences and training, so that could be I'm gonna say a bonus for Clarke County, because we are, I'm gonna say, the county in the state of Georgia. I'm gonna say that we are. And so so if you would like to, vote for hourly or stipend, if you go with stipend, what would that monthly amount be? And meeting would be required. We just wouldn't get it if you didn't show up, right? And then you would still get your mileage on election day and for training when you're going to the training locations. And then a daily amount for training. Just a suggestion, but you tell me what the amounts you feel it should be, so that I'll have something that I can present that came from a vote from you as a board.
So
Let's add this to new business, and then we have to amend the agenda.
Put your back for it.
Everybody in agreement with that? So we'll amend the agenda after your report, and then we'll vote on all that stuff.
All right, awesome.
You can go back to your report.
Okay. So,
Oh, sorry, just gonna say, is this something we need a work session?
okay.
I'm sure we'll be.
So number 3 is the city of Winterville. There is a seat that is vacant on their council board. So when we take qualifying for their general municipal election, we'll also take qualifying for that special election to fill that seat. And as I receive more information from the city of Winterville, I've already been informed by the city clerk that that's gonna happen. So that election will be held in conjunction with their municipal general, just to let you know that. There weren't any open records requests for the month of April, believe it or not. Let us stress this time. But we have had a good many, since the month of May, and you will get those in the next meeting. At this time, any other comments and questions you have, I'll take those. All of my updates.
Right? Hearing no further questions or comments for the director, the chair will entertain a motion to amend the agenda to add under new business, item 2, vote on board compensation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Shirley, second, Ms. Till. All those in favor of amending the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
So the next item on the agenda under old business is resolution for advanced voting schedule template, and that was Hank. And we did not have a time limit listed on that. 15 minutes, amenable to everyone? Okay, I'm gonna set a timer for 15 minutes.
Okay. So after our last meeting, I basically, when Mr. Raffles said, we have agreed on the advanced voting agenda from the previous election. I made a template, filled in the blanks on the right. Hopefully you'll have that. It's, I don't know if that's the first one or the second one. That's the second one. But I know the second one I made is has Wednesdays 7 to 7. So that's the, I took, absolutely did not make any changes to it and presented it here, which is, it includes all the polling locations we have discussed, Miriam Moore, UGA for 3 days, and it's up for discussion. In the past, we have, I think as a board, we have not been very amenable to reduce hours or days. Because we can still discuss that and go on with it. Yesterday evening, Adam sent me some of his thoughts, which I thought were something I can very much agree with. As a group, we haven't had a chance to discuss it. And it was to let's make it as uniform as possible. And what I really like about it is how the staff can market it and its people can remember. Say, you know, we don't have to worry about many different hours, many different places. And there were just a couple of changes. And one was, of course, Wednesdays, keep it from 9 to 5. We don't need to go 7 to 7. We can add in the Sundays. I personally don't think the Sundays should be there, but if that's as a group, the board decides we need to maintain that. That's okay. We can do that. I can support that. And just make it absolutely uniform, 9 to 5 throughout on the days that we have the advanced voting, including Saturday. I read the code in the Georgia law and said 9 to 5 is necessary for 2 Saturdays, at least at one location. And I think this schedule comes up with it. So if you all want to take a look at it. I also took the liberty of coming up with a third schedule. Please, I want to present it to you all. I think for the primary runoff, it just doesn't make sense to spend so much of the staff time and effort on this. On that one, I just took out 4 of the, I took out quite a few of the precincts, which I think are fairly close to the downtown, and kept the 3 outlying precincts in the library.
Did you send that to us?
Yes, that should be in the package, and I'm just thinking I might have made a mistake here because there were 4 in there. There was the Winterville
Is it the last page?
ACC extension and one other
Oh,
one.
is it?
Library. The very last page of the packet has your name at the top and it has elections office, library, Winterville, train depot, and extension. You have
Yeah,
something else?
I thought there was one more. What is the, we got the tennis center should have been. No, not the tennis center, Winterville. Winterville, on that map you said, what were the 3 on the side? There was Winterville, ACC extension, wasn't there another one?
Ms. Van Row would want Miriam Moore on here.
Well, this is just for the primary runoff.
What does primary runoff mean?
It means so for your May or June election, if there is a runoff, then I just feel
So not a November runoff.
not the November.
Okay.
So I'm throwing it out to you. Is that, can that be done?
I've got the math pulled up that I emailed you.
What you sent only has 3 attachments.
Yeah.
We printed all 3.
Right.
Oh.
Were you asking me what were the other things that I had on the list? The map that I sent you had that I had made was the 8 locations we had last year.
Yeah.
So
Which one I was thinking of.
you had, so Linden House, State Center?
No, I did not want Linden House and the Tate Center
Right.
there for
So
sure.
close,
So they were too close to downtown. I figured for the primary, the June runoff, we really don't need this many precincts to be open.
I don't think there were more than just those then, the one that I sent you, but
Then, and the Miriam.
Right.
Center. But, so that's where I stand. So I would like to discuss it with you, what do you all think? For the June runoffs.
First, I'd like to say that I don't think we should take a vote. Ms. Van Row.
Okay, that's fine.
Good, the chair recognizes that.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So we're specifically talking just about a primary election runoff right now.
Yes.
An advance, okay. And so I think, yes, I want to just reiterate, because I want to remind myself why we're doing this. All the back and forth we had last fall, the
Yeah.
last minute changing of early voting,
Yes.
we thought, wouldn't it be great if we had a sort of a general, the bones set in place of what we wanted? And so I love the spirit of this. Did I hear you right? So what you have given us in the packet, you would add Miriam Moore to your list of locations for the primary runoff?
For the primary runoffs, no,
No,
not for
the
the
main.
primary runoffs, for the
Got it.
November runoff.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, then like you said, when we emailed last night about this, more than the specifics about what hour to what hour, I'm more in favor of the uniformity. I remember we heard from some poll workers back in the fall who even spoke to the fact that it was, I think they said it was confusing to them about the different times that we had. And so I love that you're proposing 9 to 5, for example. It can be 8 to 4, 8 to 6, whatever. I like the
Yes.
fact that it's, if there's voting in Athens,
Yes.
it's this hour to this hour. I like that. As far as, I understand that if there were any special election circumstance to have the fewest polling places, like you're saying, the primary runoff would be it. I don't know what the magic number would be. I like what you're trying to do as far as geographic separation. Give as many people as possible, as much access as possible, understanding that turnout is very, very low usually on primary runoffs. But yeah, so in general, I love the fact that whatever times we agree on, because the more notice we give staff, the better chance of those locations being able to honor a uniform time. So those are my initial thoughts. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do you all have any feelings about it?
I like consistency. That way the public doesn't have to look every day online or somewhere to find, well, what's the voting hours today? I think that's an important issue.
Do you feel we should have consistency on the number of precincts open? May runoff and November. November.
I mean, I'm willing to listen what the rest has to say, and I don't know that I would find any major objections to what the group thinks, because we're all
Me neither.
pretty much on the same
Yeah.
page.
To me, just, it's just the numbers are not usually there for the primary. First of all, primary runoffs don't occur that often either. So, Mr. Raffle, do you have any?
I do. I am in favor of consistency. But consistency looks a lot different to me than 9 to 5. If I'm being honest, consistency is 7 to 7 every single day. But I'm not sure that I could get agreement with the rest of the board on that. And the reason being, and you all know what I'm going to say anyways, is people have jobs and people have daycare, people have other obligations that they have to adhere to or attend to in their lives, and they need this variance of hours. They've taken away so many other of our tools. This is literally what we have left
Okay.
to provide access to the polls. I know that some of my colleagues will say if people want to vote, they will vote, and I understand that, but I think that if we made this decision to do 7 to 7 in advance, and the staff always knew that would happen, that perhaps they could plan their staffing much further in advance and not have the shortages that we encountered last time.
So regardless of whether it's a June runoff or November runoff,
Well,
we have the consistency.
I know I'm speaking towards
Yeah,
general elections and the May municipal, not just the Novembers, but there's the May one here with the local offices and stuff. Runoffs, that's a whole different thing. And like you said, last time that special, how many people voted? Like 300, I don't know. So it's stupid, to lack of a better word, to open all these places. I agree with you, but I also feel that we should open these people and give these people an opportunity to vote. I think that is a one-off occurrence, and that in this day and age, there's going to always, in a purple state like Georgia, where people are winning by very close margins on either side, that runoffs are just part of that. There is no if we have a runoff, it's when we have a runoff.
that's good. Now, I mean, as I understood, this template was only for the runoffs, but I can go ahead and put it together for the other elections also.
Yeah,
Was that correct? Did I misunderstand? Maybe I
I
misunderstood.
think possibly, maybe I wasn't
Oh,
clear, perhaps, but when I initially proposed this idea, whenever it first came up,
Okay.
was we have a template. If this is the template, this is what
Yeah,
general looks like, this is what runoff, and this is what special looks like.
okay. If that's the case, then the one template which I sent as, if you go in your inbox, you'll see it as Rocky. That's the one that pretty much has everything you want, all the precincts. And all the hours, Wednesday, 7 to 7, including Sunday. And like you said, maybe when Willa's here, we can vote for it.
Yeah, and I thought that we had done 7 to 7 in November downtown for that last week. All day. I'd have to go back and look.
Every day?
That third week. I'm not sure.
I can
Yeah,
understand
we do.
7 to 7 on maybe a Wednesday, but every day, people have to accommodate. If they get a ticket, they have to go to court. If they get a doctor's appointment, they have to do that. People have to understand, and they do understand, that everything is not going to be open 7 to 7 every day for them. They understand that we don't have staff. There are so many things that go into these elections other than we want people to vote. We want to do the best that we can with the resources that we have, and we have to balance that. And that's why we go through this time after time. I just don't understand why we need to make it 7 to 7 so many days. We have Saturdays, we have Sundays, we have 7 to 7. I think we're accommodating people as best we can because we just have so much that we can give.
I think we're doing more than that. I really would like for, public opinion, for someone to come, just 5 people, one person to come and say, I could not vote because you were not open on this particular day, this hour. And that's the only time they could come. I really would like, but
You'll
But
find
I
those, you can
understand.
find those people, they will come. But the people that say, I have no problem, I can manage to vote, they're not gonna come in and tell you that.
Those people very well, they have the luxury of a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job.
Speaking general terms with a very broad brush for many people that might not actually be true. because we have paper ballots. If you can't get here, if you work 3 jobs, and God bless people that have to do that, have daycare, people have burdens that we don't even understand. That's why we have paper ballots.
I wanted to add what this made me think of as a teacher in middle school in May, with the state tests and student achievement being a big focus of ours right now. It's making me think of the arguments that my colleagues and I have had at school about student achievement and why don't kids just try harder? Why don't they read more? Why don't they do more math? Why don't they read more, please? And we each, all teachers I've known have struggled with saying at some point, well, personal responsibility, you're just not, I did what I could, you got to do what you got to do, buddy. Sink or swim, little birdie got to fly. But then we each, all colleagues that I know from education, come back and think, no, I don't need him or her to pass because it's for their sake. It's for all of our sake. We all need for as many students as possible to succeed in education. And this made me think of this discussion we're having here. I agree that there is a balance to be made between the public funds that we're trusted to help advise on how to spend and the need to get people to vote. But I do feel like I don't need you to vote for your own sake. I need you to vote for our sake. I need every single person from every single walk of life in this county to vote because they have perspectives I can't begin to imagine. And so I totally agree again that just please vote. You have paper ballots. We're open until 7. Please vote. But there are people that are in this county that are coming from walks of life that I'm not a part of, and I don't know what's keeping them from voting. So making it easier to vote for them. It made me want to express a different angle on why I try to default to let's make it easier to vote. Because of that symbol, we all need everyone to vote, right? We all suffer when people don't vote. So I didn't mean to take the rest of our time with that, but that connection with education came to mind for me. So, but I do support the general idea of consensus or consistency and uniformity. So.
Okay, well then the Rocky one, which I put together, I'll just go ahead and clean it up a little bit and then we can present it for when Willow's here and the whole.
We should put a title at the top of the page, what this is.
No, the file name. So when you go into your
File name.
email, that will be it. I'll send out just one so there is no confusion instead of 3 of them discuss.
Okay.
I'll send out another one tonight. I always try and see if we can reduce a little.
We'll add that to the June agenda.
Yes.
Hopefully, Pembroke is here. They're here. The next item on the agenda is the continuing discussion about changes to voter precincts for 2024 elections. And that is Mr. Shirley. Chair recognizes Mr. Shirley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This standing agenda item is just to update people who might be tuning into this, but not the work sessions. We are making progress, most assuredly. We are precariously close to something. I believe we have a work session next week. Is it the 16th?
Yes.
The 16th. And so we are still keeping as close as possible to the schedule that Director Sosby recommended to us as far as the hearings that we will have. I just want to remind everybody who might be listening for the first time, we are not deciding or voting on anything at these work sessions. We are simply just like taking straw polls, we're calling it, and try to build consensus. And then no matter what we were to want to try and change, we're going to have at least 1 or 2 public hearings where we will just open the floor up and listen to people tell us what's good, what's bad about what we're doing. And after that point, we might then make changes for the 2024 election. Just kind of want to give a recap. Unless I'm mistaken on some of that, please correct me. But that's what I have for that.
Quick comment, Mr. Raffle, if I may. And it's actually a request for Lisa McGlone that when I was meeting with the person at Henry County, they have split votes, split shifts. How they go about doing it, I didn't have time. So if you want to call someone and find out how do they pass through, because for us, it's been a challenge even thinking about it in the past. We didn't have enough people to even do it, but at least the logistics of how it could work. That is one county I know that does it.
Yeah, I've talked to several counties about it before, because it is something that we want to move to. It's just been really difficult for many reasons. It would almost double our poll worker force, so double the number of people we have on staff. That we I put in a little plug, currently really need an election software that helps me manage the poll workers, because I keep all of that in my head and on spreadsheets. So if you double that amount of people and put them in shifts, that's me and Aletha trying to figure out who needs to get paid for what, who goes to work where. It gets very, very complicated. We're already handling about 250 people.
300.
300 people on staff, 250 that might average work. So that's why there's a lot of logistical challenges to make that happen. And then we've never had that many people apply that we could actually get through the hiring process in time to provide that many workers. And it's like inviting people to a birthday party. You could have 10 people you invite to your birthday party, but 4 will show up. We may have 300 on our rolls, but only 150 may want to work. You know, so it's a balancing act. So we're trying.
Was that software included in the budget proposal?
As far as I know, it did not get approved.
How much was it? Was it
$35,000.
35,000?
It's not, it's an entire election management software. So that was only
Oh.
one portion of it. There's also training, a way to, an LMS system to manage the training. There's inventory, it's fabulous. That's all I can say. It had everything.
Ballot DA company?
No, it's a company, it's a different company.
Because I remember him showing me poll worker management shift payroll.
It's a different company. The Cherokee County has it, if you wanted to.
The next item on the agenda is board, what do we call it? Board compensation, something.
We wanted to put that before the existing new business item.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I put it in. That's my mistake. The next item on the agenda under new business is drafting a written agreement for non-governmental entities where voting is conducted. And I know Lisa had done some work and I have a question for the attorney's office, but
I would probably defer to anything Charlotte wants to say about that first, and then I can add anything to it.
Yeah, so I've spoken, had conversations with the attorney's office, and there was some conversations that we've also had with other counties, that there's some things that we should probably consider as it relates to our ordinance, when it comes to making provisions for electricity or whatever that we would need for voting, particularly with this particular component that we're using for voting now that requires a larger electrical capacity. So there may be something in our ordinance that would not allow the county to make those enhancements to a private church or,
that wasn't my intent on it, but.
but if we selected a location that wasn't a government.
Right.
So there's some things that legally that will need to be defined in that agreement. So we would have to rely on the attorney's office for that guidance. But what we're doing already is a letter that we send to our locations. And in that letter, we indicate that if there is a possibility that we won't be able to use the facility, that we would need to know well in advance, because state law requires us to inform our voters 60 days prior to an election if their location has changed. So they have that already in mind. So for now, that's really all we have is that letter and their agreements that they would abide by those guidelines. So.
Sounds like we're working on it, yeah.
I think I can only draw on past experience, I'm not, so I recall Making Bid was going through a similar process of looking for polling locations about different concerns that staff would go out and visit and determine, did the place have enough electrical capacity? You follow what I'm saying? I'm not sure who was staff, maybe it was my facilities, but that is, I remember you had to keep in mind, as far as, like you said, I think I want to recall that they had I don't remember being involved in an agreement. I want to think staff may have had some kind of simple agreement that I never was asked to review. I don't think it's bad to have one, and the more detail you have, the more you pin down to ensure that you don't have any issue there, you know? But, I mean, as far as,
I guess the idea kind of came up when we were talking about churches and
yeah.
different things.
It's a big, I think, you know, I know I was looking, I sent her some of the regs, I'm looking now. I mean, it has to be handicap accessible, you know, there's a lot of, I think you always have to have that checklist in your hand as a staff person, learn to evaluate that location. Because it's gonna be, you know, I'm not sure how much money, I don't recall us paying money to upgrade people's electrical. You follow what I'm saying? And that just kind of discounts that location. Or if it's not handicap accessible, we certainly can't do it there. So it's just basically, if they're not willing to make those improvements themselves, it's kind of I remember it was just kind of, well, that location won't work because they don't have enough electrical there, you know, or that didn't become an issue with these new machines, did it?
Well,
No, it's
but
more
we were able to do the,
It's more of an issue with these new
Than
machines.
the old machines.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, is it more of an issue with the old machine?
No.
More interesting, yeah. But I remember that meeting, all that being said is, I mean, I'm happy to try and draft some type of agreement. But I think ultimately though, it's gonna be determine that location first meets, we could say it meets all these requirements, but we're gonna have to verify that as staff. We can't count on a private entity or church to ensure all that's met. Does that make sense? They might be willing to work with us some. We could say, are you willing to do this for us? Or maybe we do. Maybe we might be willing to make some small modifications if they were feasible in order to be able to use that location. I think it's a collaborative process. So does that make sense? You know, as y'all are looking at locations? I can really remember those staff having gone out and visited and said, well, we looked at this is not going to be feasible, or this is feasible, but is that how you remember the
Yes.
process works?
yes, we do it.
Yeah, you do it.
We survey our locations every year.
Y'all think about changing some locations?
You missed a couple of meetings, huh?
No.
Yeah,
Not many. Oh, okay.
go ahead.
I was curious to know, Attorney Drake, are you aware of any provisions? There's an ordinance apparently that prohibits a government entity from, is the gratuity clause? Is it something like that?
I guess that's what you're talking about. I mean, I'm not familiar with ordinance. There is a gratuities clause that say we can't, but to me, if we're making improvements to a private property in order that we're able to use it, I don't think that's a gratuity. Does that make sense?
I see. I might have been making up a.
To a certain degree. I mean, ultimately, you're out to get the approval, make sure you have the budgeted money to do this, but I mean, it might be reasonable. The only problem is I would say from a liability standpoint, what risk is, here's the thing, when you start getting an agreement in place about all this, then risk gets involved and reviews the agreement, and it becomes a lot more,
It's different.
they guess different now. They want insurance, they want all this. Be careful what you ask for.
Risk is involved? I'm sorry, what?
Risk management, our risk management.
Okay, thank you. I
They
see.
get, as they should, really persnippety about things sometimes. I mean, as they should. I'm just saying it just, you know, in government, when you put another set of eyes on a level of scrutiny, they like, well, we have to have this. And we're like, we haven't had that for 15, 20 years. I'm just telling you, that's what goes.
So I think if I recall correctly, what we're thinking about is there's a polling place we are considering adding to our list of polling places, and it's a private place, private property, not public property. And so we would potentially they might need to upgrade their electrical. And so we might, just saying, if there were the money existed for us to do it, are you aware of any prohibitions against
If we
us?
took I mean, usually if we took the position and it wasn't outrageous, I mean, we can't redo all their electrical. That just wouldn't I mean, if it's a small expenditure to justify us being able to use it without paying any rent or cost, maybe that's justifiable. Does that make sense, you know?
As far as legally, are there, I know that it's.
So gratuities clause, you know, is how far you can take it. You follow what I'm saying?
I see, thank you. Okay.
Uh,
But you're
So
saying.
how far, I'm sure, and I think you're going to have the money appropriated for all this.
Sure, but yeah, that's a separate thing. Like, step one is, are we legally allowed to? Are you saying that?
I just think it depends on, you know, I mean, I think you have a hard time arguing, justifying. You'd have a hard time arguing or justifying that, say, an expense of maybe $10,000 is warranted to use a place. Is that too much? I don't know. I guess that's a policy decision. I don't know. I think it's allowable as long as you justify it from the standpoint that we're getting a public benefit by the money we're paying, the fact that it's being able to use for an election. I think it's probably legally allowable. Does that make sense?
Thank you. One last question then.
If it gets to a point where maybe it's just unreasonable. I don't think y'all would approve something anyway.
But you're
The
saying,
commission would. Does that make sense, you know?
would it put us on sounder footing, you're saying, if we had a written agreement going along with this? That
I definitely, if we're gonna start spending money on private property, we're gonna have a written agreement.
understood.
There's also a precedent that could be set there as well.
Yeah, when you start doing that, other places that never have wanted you to do anything, will say, wait a minute, now you're paying, you're doing this for them. There you go. That's where you gotta be careful about, you know, where you're going with this.
Yep.
Think about the unintended consequences.
Well, I can tell you, after going on a tour last week with Lisa and Pam to these two new locations, because we're looking to move from schools and other places that really don't want us. And there are very few people that are willing to accommodate us, that have a capacity to accommodate us, that have the wheelchair accommodations and which doors and do those doors lock and how many outlets do they have and all the things that are required for us to provide a place for people to vote. And the residents of Athens, you know, they don't think about all of that, but this is just one small aspect of us providing voting for people. It's not just
Very important.
deciding what hours. I mean, this is all so complicated.
It is. One thing I was wondering, did the schools stay open during voting here? So it seemed like in Macon they would close for the.
Some of them did.
So I don't know if you know.
That might be what we talk about that, talking to the Board of Education. I can understand the
Hold
concern.
on, hold on. I don't know if you know if it's on your calendar, but we have a meeting scheduled, a joint meeting with the school board, and that's one of the things we're hoping to address.
Yeah.
Is I think you need to always assume that there will be a runoff, so plan your district calendars accordingly.
Oh, they close for the general election. They're open.
They usually do always close for general, but then we have like 18 runoffs these days. So,
Now we're,
hold on one second.
okay.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said the code kind of spells out when those dates would be to infinity, like it's the second month and the second week or whatever. So you can figure out an infinite number of,
Following the full moon.
On most of them.
yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah, so I think that's something that we're hoping to articulate to the school board to plan around, so there are no children
Yes.
on site.
And then the school board, they devise their calendars way in advance.
Right.
Because when I first moved here, I had met with one of the board members of the school board, and we talked about, you know, having a calendar that looks like ours, where there'll be students out of the, you know, not on campus during those days. And we just never were able to get our calendars to balance. I know Clarke County works around UGA's calendar because they're in Georgia, Florida, right?
One of the positives that came out of COVID is now asynchronous learning is not this like abstract idea.
Right.
So on the dates that could be runoffs, those could be asynchronous days. And if there's no runoff, then, okay.
And that's what I suggested.
Right,
So, and I believe it's like that in my home county, that
Yeah.
they have, when there's an election, they have virtual. I was gonna mention too, we do have a contract with the mall that we enter an agreement with them every year. But the contract had to be adjusted in a way for us, because it's the same contract that a vendor would use or a storefront would have.
Sure.
So we had to work it out some kind of way. So we may be able to take that contract and look at it and see based on what's in it. Because it spells out that we're using this space for an election, and it tells what days we're using it. And what days, you know, we would need to have the space available. So that might be a good.
It doesn't spell out what laws require us to be there, and we can't change it so many days before, and unless it's an emergency. Those are the kind of things that, not
Yes,
necessarily an agreement, but a notification to these
Right.
people that
right.
legally required to do X, Y, Z
Yes.
on election day
Right.
at polling location blank.
And then the process that I used in the past has now become a little more, as Attorney Drake mentioned, it's a little more complex now. It's not just me presenting it to the mayor and then it coming back with a signature. Now it's gotta go and Risk has to get their eyes on it, and these particular, so, and the attorney's office, of course. So, yeah.
Quick question.
Last question.
Yeah, something y'all said just a few minutes ago, and I just want to make sure I understand it. If say if there is a $10,000 cost, who actually approves it? Is it the manager's office, the mayor's commission, or
Nikki
is it
does.
your?
Well, if it's,
That would, Mayor.
Well, if it's a formal lease, if it's a formal lease, you know, it has to be approved by the commission. That's why I wanna think. Sometimes maybe don't make that formal. Have to go to commission. That's why government, sometimes board of elections don't try and do that, just as another layer. But, I'd like to. I would like to get some, I'm willing to, we are also can certainly draft leases, that's what we do all the time. But I'd like to look back, and I'd like maybe reach out to a couple other, to see how, maybe some other boards of election offices, how they're doing it. Because if it gets to where it's a formal lease, I wonder if that mall one was approved maybe by the commission, because it sounds like a more significant thing. May have to do that. And maybe that's what we need, have that. It'll take some work to get that done. When you start getting people to sign stuff, it gets a lot more, formal. Maybe it should be.
okay. Right, the next item on the agenda is what we amended the agenda to, and that is compensation
It's old.
for the board.
I think if they want to.
Meeting slides up.
Right, yes.
You want
I don't know, I have a simple idea in my head, but first of all, let's vote on stipend versus hourly. And then we can, well, so the director wants us to vote on whether we think it should be an hourly thing, which is my idea, but you're willing to let go. So stipend versus, so let's make that decision. And then we can decide on what the stipend we believe it should be. Let's set a time limit of 10 minutes, and then if it goes past, some crazy discussion here. Come back to it. All right, the chair will entertain a motion to, well, how should we work that?
If it's on the agenda, do we?
Well, we're voting on stipend versus cash.
Oh, okay, that's.
I move that we approve the director's recommendation to pay board members a stipend instead of an hourly wage.
So moved.
If that, okay, yes.
Motion by,
You can't move.
yeah, I can.
Sure.
I'm a voting member.
You're the chair.
Do we have a second?
Pardon me?
Do we have a second?
Yes,
Second, still.
that's stipend, right?
Yes, second, yeah. All those in favor of stipend, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. That was easy. This number, if we round it up $100 more and divide it by 12 is $250 a month. I think that's pretty in line with everything else. So that's what I'm thinking, but open to other suggestions.
Like replacing this with a flat stipend of that much per month, to make sure I understand.
What do you think, Director?
Sounds good to me.
I mean, it's easy for you, it's easy for Ms. Aletha, just $250 a month, and then I guess we could adjust that section above, say someone misses, they don't go to the conference, we can then calculate out what that would be. I don't know.
Or do you want to have conference and training a separate thing from your monthly amount?
Okay with
That's a
that?
good idea.
Yeah, that's fine.
That can be hourly.
Like have a certain amount per day for
That sounds good.
conference?
Yeah, equal to poll managers. I don't even know what the number is. So,
No, not hourly, but per day. Do you?
oh, conference per day. Yeah, what do you have up there?
I think it would be easy to stick with
Just,
a flat instead of, you get an hour pay this time, you get a per diem this time. It's something.
So we're not speaking of like $250 a month every month, right? For armies.
well, that's what that's,
Yeah,
Because what happens is, like for the last conference, couple of, you and me going to the conference.
well, that's what she's
That's what
saying,
she's
is
saying.
that would be additional.
That if I don't go, I don't get paid.
Oh, that is
conference money.
the addition. Okay.
If I go, I get paid conference money
So then,
per day.
I would, for the conference day rate, I would suggest, well, $15 an hour times 8 hours of training is 120. So that's a starting number,
Okay.
that's good.
but
what do you think about that monthly stipend amount? Having the meeting requirement that was in the proposal, like if I can't make it to the meeting and I don't therefore participate for that month, I don't get my stipend that month. Was that the intent of the proposal? Or what do you think about that, rolling that in?
You don't get paid for that.
If we only met once in August, for example, and I couldn't make that meeting, then I didn't participate that month in our meetings, then I would not receive my stipend that month. I'm in favor of that. I just
but
wanted
what
to see-
about the other months when we have 6 meetings?
Then that month you'd get the stipend.
Yeah.
But you're right,
I
that's
think
the
it
kind
just
of,
would even out if you miss. Or I've been in groups where you get, when I was on T-Splost, I think you got 3 absences or something. And then you were kicked off from voting. It was something like that.
That's more work for Elite.
No, but I don't know.
I think it evens out.
I think it evens out.
Sometimes y'all are required to do a lot when you have challenges and
Yeah,
issues come up, have to stay there all night.
I mean, we're all adults, and if you have to miss something,
I mean, people have things come up.
you're not missing because you're down at Little King's drinking cocktails. You're missing because your kid is sick or your grandma has an issue or.
now then, so, okay, understood. So then what do we think about for the conferences and training? That's, if you don't attend, you don't get that.
That's simple.
I think that's
I
fine.
think that's a good
I
idea.
am okay with that.
What amount would you like to put down for that? Per day?
I think it should be greater than 120, but
Is that
again,
per day, one-
that's the awkwardness of this conversation.
Is
Right?
it 120 per day? Is that what you have per
Well-
day, 120?
Currently, it's,
I was asking,
$15 an hour.
yeah,
$15 an hour currently.
does that come to, my math's not good enough to figure, is that 120 a day?
Yeah.
I think that's fair, yeah.
So as someone who might have to defend this at the table at the mayor and commission meeting, I would ask y'all to, what would be helpful is if you paid attention to the comparative analysis. Because they may ask, well, where'd you get this number from?
Right.
Then you would say $250. Well, that falls in line with all that right there. That's easy.
I mean, Fulton County arguably does a lot more work than we do. Millions versus hundreds. I mean, that would put us on the higher end if you look at like workload versus, right?
Look at the other compensation as well, because that's what we're talking about now is the other compensation.
That's right. And so, for example, to Manager Jones's point, other compensation, some counties on this list have no extra pay. Gwinnett, $50 for a special called meeting. Paulding, $125 for election day, $70 per day for working in the office. It's a situation that don't really describe us, but yes, there's a variety of things here. But many of them say some form of no other compensation. I share your discomfort overall with the whole thing. So I would ultimately defer to the director on this specific thing. What do we think about the idea of just the stipend? And there's ebbs and flows. We meet 1 time some months, we meet 6 times some months,
Yeah, I think
elections.
that's what we're,
Is that kind of what we're coalescing around, like just a flat,
We
I
just
think
want
that's what at
this
least,
right?
average, say we're talking about $250 a month stipend. And I think we ought to have somewhere in there that we get sick. Most of us are at every meeting.
Mhm.
It might be something we want to add where once or twice a year we're sick and we're allowed to miss and not be penalized because we might have 4 or 5 other meetings that month.
Right.
So I think just an average of $250 a month, you maybe have
2 sick days a year. The conference is separate and as simple as possible.
What I was thinking.
Does that sound good?
The last, or the conference is separate, I'm not sure.
Conference is separate.
Meaning what? I'm sorry.
Training.
Meaning that's
When
paid
you go
separately?
to the conference, you get paid per day.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. Okay, so that brings it back to that. Just making sure. Okay.
That's
Okay.
okay.
So not a flat 250 for everything. 250 for everything except for conferences and training is what we're,
Ditto.
got it. Okay. I hear that. But wait, does that, like, sorry, from my perspective, I'm still going to kind of defer to Director Sosby. Does that,
That in
is
line?
that in line with what you would think is
Yeah,
reasonable?
as mentioned, conferences and trainings are typical. And I'm looking here, I don't see that anybody else gets paid for conferences and trainings. So if I was going to argue the point, I guess I would say you currently receive conference and training at $15 an hour, which equals $120, so you want to keep it the same. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I want to just be able to justify why we're here.
And then I guess to add on top of all of that, the mileage expenses for election day and travel.
Yes.
Okay.
That you currently get.
I don't know if
I
that,
never charged for that.
but. Okay. You have that all kind of captured? so
I'm
you can
catching up.
read it and
I'll catch it.
vote?
Because we want to be done with it.
Yes.
I'm so tired of having this conversation.
Are you?
I thought it was good.
Let me tell you one thing is that, okay, I love my job, but there's a couple of things that I just do it because I'm supposed to, but when I get ready to do it, it stresses me out. And agenda items is one of them in the budget.
I'll go with you next time.
I mean, I enjoy,
Behind you if you want.
I enjoy doing it, but when you're presenting to those higher ups, they want it bump, 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 and I'm going, but I understand it. This is my term. I understand what I'm talking about, but no, detail, 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 right? So, yeah.
Take him with you, he'll be a good bouncer.
So every time y'all say, well, we want to go, I want you to go before the mayor commission, I go, oh my God.
Yeah, I'm happy to go, or I'm sure other board members, no more than two.
Oh, y'all don't have to, I got it.
So, Mr. Chair, if it's okay, I would, to get things moved on,
Yeah.
I would move that we request board member compensation be changed as follows. $250 monthly stipend plus $120 per diem for conferences and training.
Do you want to add this line about the mileage reimbursement? that's on there?
Plus,
I apologize. I've got to go to a commission.
is that rate defined by the county? Can we refer to that?
Federal rate.
I think
Federal? All right, so there's no, okay, plus, standard, standard.
What?
So I'm sorry, I would like to rephrase restate my motion to request that board member compensation be changed as follows. $250 monthly stipend plus $120 per diem for conferences and training plus standard modded reimbursement.
And you're making that motion?
If that's where we're going, I wanted to reflect what we've been
That
saying.
is accurate to what I'm understanding.
Amen.
Is your amen a second?
Amen.
I have a question before the vote.
Yeah, go ahead.
I completely echo the sentiment of let's get this done and not come back to this for, what's that, 30 years? So I'm happy with this, mostly because the director is supportive of this. We're good with this being, there's no ands, ifs, and buts about election day, certification. I'm fine with it. I want to be sure that we don't come back and say, but wait, next month.
A second.
So we're, okay, just making sure.
Now, is it possible that they may want to negotiate? I don't mind you taking position and saying whatever they want to give.
Well, I'm sure the mayor commission's gonna have their conversation.
Well, they have the right to
Right,
say
yep.
$600 or $12. I mean, they can.
Exactly.
Yes, I'm sure they will. Good luck.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. for the 14th time.
It feels like.
The next item on the agenda are announcements. We have two upcoming meetings listed here. One is on Tuesday, May 16th at the Lexington Road location. And that is a special call meeting as a work session to continue the work on the voter precincts. The next meeting is June 13th at 4:30 PM at 120 West Doherty Street, and that's our regular meeting, and that is this location. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Susan?
That second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.